Education without imagination is defeat and elimination. To lose a battle from failure to use imagination is an automatic win for the adversary who successfully applies imagination, also known as how to sell failure to the unimaginative loser. The following is a film review of the movie Red Dawn, released August 10th, 1984. The story summary goes like this. In an alternate 1980s, the United States stands alone as communism grows stronger. When Soviet soldiers invade a small Colorado town, now remember this, a small Colorado town, brothers Jed and Matt escape with friends to the forest. With their father, Tom, a prisoner of the invading army, the children decide to fight against the Soviets. As the country comes under increasing attack, the group teams up with Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Tanner to take back their town. Frame 333 of the movie, Calumet High School. The scene opens in a classroom addressed by Mr. Teasdale, a middle-aged black male teacher in a predominantly white school. Mr. Teasdale is explaining an art of war tactic that was used by Genghis Khan. He tells the class, and I quote, "Now the great hunt would always begin with the armies spread out in a semicircle, I would say about the size of Rhode Island. Then they would ride forward, driving everything before them, beasts, men, even bugs. Now the ends would kind of close in to form a shrinking circle, and everything within that circle panicked to get out. So when the Mongols could see each other, they had worked themselves up into a pretty good frenzy. Now, when this killing started, it lasts for days, weeks, even months, and it went on until the young son of Khan asked his father that the last creature alive be allowed to go free." It's at this moment, frame 430 in the movie, that Mr. Teasdale spots hundreds of parachutes and Soviet paratroopers landing on the school's campus right outside the classroom windows. The Soviet troops are armed with automatic assault rifles and begin quickly setting up other massive assault weapons aimed at the school. At frame 527, the invaders open fire on the unarmed teacher and the students in the classroom. This gruesome scene establishes that the idea of a mass shooting at a high school did not begin with the Columbine mass shooting event, but instead the idea was first presented as the opening scene of the movie Red Dawn, that portrayed a communist attack on America 15 years before Columbine. Was this movie scene the foretelling of the coming Red Dawn in America? Not only does the 1984 movie release date coincide with Orson Welles' book titled 1984, but the location of the high school mass shooting in Red Dawn occurs in Calumet, Colorado, a former mining town, now a ghost town, about a 2-hour drive from Littleton, Colorado, where Columbine High School is located. At Columbine High School in Littleton, Colorado, 2 teens went on a shooting spree on April 20th, 1999, killing 13 people and wounding more than 20 others before turning their guns on themselves and committing suicide. The Columbine shooting was at the time the worst high school shooting in U.S. history, but Red Dawn was the first to present the idea 15 years earlier. The town of Calumet in Red Dawn is just under 1,300 miles from the west coast of America. This means that more than 100 Soviet planes were able to penetrate deep inside America without triggering an alarm, an invasion siren, a news flash, a fighter jet intercept, or any military intervention. Nothing. Of course, this could just be the result of bad Hollywood writing, but let's not rush to judgment here. There's just one more thing to tie in here. Frame 5515. Sitting around a campfire, Lieutenant Colonel Tanner describes to the young fighters how the attack unfolded. He says that the first wave of the attack came in disguised as commercial charter flights. Now let that sink in for a minute. The first wave of the attack came in disguised as commercial charter flights.
At 8:19, on the morning of 9/11, flight attendants aboard Flight 11 alert ground personnel that the plane has been hijacked. American Airlines notifies the FBI. At 10:07 that morning, after passengers and crew members aboard the hijacked Flight 93 contact friends and family and learn about the attacks in New York and Washington, they mount an attempt to retake the plane. In response, hijackers deliberately crash the plane into a field in Somerset County, Pennsylvania, killing all 40 passengers and crew aboard. Total elapsed time with no Air Force intervention, 1 hour 48 minutes or 108 minutes.
Spoiler alert. Red Dawn 1984 ends by implying that these young fighters eventually forced the communists out and saved the country. But in reality, how will the story end if America's population is slowly reduced to a zero threat level under the deceptive cover of terrorism, global warming, climate change, and an everlasting economic recovery? Similar to the lesson that the teacher, Mr. Teasdale, was describing in the opening scene of Red Dawn, the great defeat of America would begin with the Soviet Communist Army spread out and completely encircling all her people. Then they would slowly and deceptively infiltrate her military, government, schools, universities, hospitals, treasury, churches, synagogues, free press, Hollywood, and Wall Street. Now the size of these institutions would begin to decrease and form part of a shrinking circle, and everything within that circle would soon panic to get out. Now when the killing started, it lasted for decades, even a century or more, and it went on until the last American was killed. If you can't imagine this scenario, then of course you will also fail to recognize it as the epithet taken from the gravestone of the defeated.